In agriculture, U.S. ag exports today are $143 billion, which is a really remarkable number when you stop and think about it. And that's up just $11 billion from 2016 to 2017. And so when you grow up as a farm boy in Kansas, it's hard for you to have the context of the size and the scope and the scale of U.S. agriculture and the amount of products that are traded, imported. I think our imports are somewhere in the neighborhood of 125, 130 billion. And of course, that counts a lot of wine and things like that as well. But the amount of trade that is involved is absolutely enormous. But when I took this job and had the first conversation with Ambassador Lighthizer back in March of a year ago, I emphasized to him, I said, in agriculture, sir, we play offense. And the whole world is being divvied up and everybody's having conversations about how to get new markets open. And we've been a little slow on that in the last few years, and we've got to get busy and we've got to get a few things done here. To me, it's just, every day when I show up at the office, I feel like I'm very anxious. We've got to get things done. There's a lot of things that have to happen here. We made a big announcement yesterday that I'll talk about here in a little bit that's absolutely critical related to Japan. But for the last few weeks here, we've been working nonstop on NAFTA. And of course, when it comes to Mexico, the instructions from agriculture were obviously do no harm. And that's right. I mean, when you have zero tariffs and Mexico's arguably your second or third biggest market for U.S. agricultural products, nothing really too much to fix there. What we did do with regard to Mexico, and you're going to see some text on it very, very soon, was try to work on things for the next 25 years. You have to keep in mind when we did NAFTA the first time, the internet didn't exist yet. And yet you see today the things that are changing in agriculture with regard to that. So we've got to have an ability to talk about new types of biotechnology, the CRISPR technology, gene editing, things like that, in the context of trade. And of course, we have a great relationship with Mexico on these technology issues. I wish we had the relationship with parts of the world like the EU that we do in North America related to that. But we have to work together with our major trading partners in the world to continue to help people understand how important that is. With regard to Canada and NAFTA, I have to tell you that we have spent more time on this dairy issue than anything. For you, those of you that don't understand, I read a New York Times article that talked about the similarities between the U.S. and Canadian dairy systems. I can't think of two entities that look the same, but could not be more different. Canada's dairy system is like our old tobacco program. You have to have quota to have a dairy cow in Canada. If you don't have quota, you can't sell milk in Canada. It's a closed system. And a couple of years ago, their demand for butter was going up, and imports were coming into Canada because of their closed system, so they decided to rejigger their prices to raise their production. The production of milk has gone like this. Well, when you do that and meet the demand for butter, what ends up happening is you have a bunch of protein, skim milk powder. Think of it as, I would say the word byproduct, but that's not necessarily what it is. That you create more of that than you have the demand for, so you have to move that out onto world markets. Well, it ended up in a situation where Canada, for the last couple of years, has been selling skim milk powder into Mexico, driving it through the United States, selling it to Mexico, cheaper than we can sell it from dairies in New Mexico and Arizona into Mexico, which would tell you maybe something was amiss and how that was working. We have spent an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out how to deal with this. I will tell you that Ambassador Lighthizer, the hours that we have spent trying to explain this, help understand the complexities of this,